Jai Meher Baba. First of all, thanks to Meher Baba for making this happen. Thank you all for taking the time to participate in this shared journey of life. This presentation is about an individual soul journey with the divine grace of Meher Baba, who is the avatar of this age. To be able to even recognize the avatar is a blessing and grace because, as the saying goes, the teacher comes when the student is ready. To attain the grace of a guru who is a self realized being in the form of a Madzu, Paramahamsa, Jivan Mukta, Sadguru, or Avatar is a rare privilege for any spiritual aspirant. What the 21st century humanity fails to notice is the rapid human advance in industrialization and technology during this present time period. We have gone from Industrial Revolution 1.0, starting, let's say, approximately 1800, to Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is what we call as the creative economy, in a matter of approximately 200 years, which is not a joke. So we have gone from an industrial economy to an information economy to a knowledge economy to a creative economy. There has to be some kind of divine intervention to go from the age of animal instinct to the age of analytical reasoning mind, and now finally to the age of intuition, is an indication of a big shift in human consciousness. So, without digressing, let me quickly talk about my presentation. Even though the title is about the awakenings or teachings of Meher Baba, in the first slide, we see the heading Everything is Perfect. It's a good way to start because the only thing that is not perfect is the human mind during the waking state of consciousness. That's about 16 hours a day, which is about 67% of our daily life. Nature is perfect with its universal laws pertaining to the different kingdoms. In today's presentation, we will talk about the following as described in the agenda here. So, for the people who are here for the first time and would like to know about Meher Baba, I'll give a short synopsis. After that, I'll just talk about my own personal journey. And then, what is this presentation is all about? What are the takeaways from this presentation based on two of the most important books or teachings or messages or awakenings? I'd like to use the word awakenings instead of teachings. The book Discourses and God Speaks. And there are some definitions which people might not be aware of, especially the newcomers. Words like sanskaras, maya, karma has of course become one of the words that are being used currently. We will also talk about what do I mean by spiritual operating systems, SOS, which is save our souls. And then, whenever we do any project in our life, major or minor, in our personal life or our professional life, we ask these basic questions. There are seven of them, seven being a divine number: who, what, why, how, where, and when, which is like space and time, and which path or process that we like to use. And then we will focus on the seven realities, which is basically equivalent to the 10 commandments of Christianity or Judaism, or the Eightfold Path of Gautam Buddha, or even Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So, seven realities is an important component, the essence of Baba's awakenings. The next is about the new humanity. We are the new humanity living in a very technological world. We are into digital transformation, and now we are going through COVID. So we are in the new life. Baba spent this new life, as we know, from 1949 to 1952. And what are we going to learn from this? And the third part is about balancing of heart and mind. Uh, what do we mean by that? Because the challenge for today's society is we are too mind oriented. So, and we see a lot of SAD, stress, anxiety, depression, and especially with the younger people, because they have so much information now at their fingertips. It's been difficult to balance the heart and mind. And then we talk about the two books. So this is basically the takeaway of the presentation, where discourses and God speaks. How does it relate to our daily life? How do we relate it to the seven realities of Baba? And how can we use it to balance the heart and mind, which is the practical aspect of our day-to-day living? So, and then in the end, we have the Q&A. So, a couple of things before I start the presentation. One is, this is basically a framework that I have, I meaning this Jivatma Kama, the drop soul Kama, who was very confused when he started reading Discourses, God Speaks in 1997, and then had to figure out a way to simplify it for his own understanding. So, this is a kind of a framework based on my own reading and understanding. And also, using this framework, I have my own process. So, I'm just sharing this for like minded people that the framework can be kind of a reference point. And since every individual, every drop soul is a unique human being, they will have their own unique process in this material and spiritual journey of life. So one can either design one's own framework and then also create our own unique spiritual journey or process, and then attain the goal of humanity, which is God realization or liberation, nirvana. The minimum that one can reach is nirvana. So with that, let's look at why am I giving this presentation? Why are we here? Like, the first thing we ask is, who is the subject? Of course, we are talking about the human kingdom, the human beings. And what is the objective out here? You know, I'm using Maslow's self actualization, which is equivalent to self realization, God realization, self love, self knowledge, and so on. And this is about balancing the mind and heart, and also to answer the most fundamental question, which we know is the most original whim of God: who am I? And we also know the answer, you know, that I am God, or we are all walking Buddhas, but we have to tread that path. As Baba said, you and I are not we, but one. I am God conscious, you are in the process. Why is this important? Today we see that the 1% of the population owns 99% of the net worth, you know, and many people are having a very challenging material life. Over and above that, there is also all the different kinds of conflicts, confusion, contradiction happening with the various religion, or what I call as spiritual operating systems. So, as Baba said in Discourses, it's about material and spiritual freedom, which includes the happiness of self-realization. And this is the goal of creation, why this whole universe has come about. Now, the question now is, how do we reach this goal? Since the human kingdom, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, mineral kingdom are all part of nature, we all come under the laws of nature. And so we have to understand the laws of nature, how it operates. And that's where Baba's God Speaks and Discourses come into play. God Speaks is about who is God, what is God, and why God. And Discourses is about how to go about it. Where and when? We all know about space, three dimension, time, which gives you the fourth dimension. Space time is one. But in the context of this presentation, we are talking about the, when we talk about the seven different stages of life, One is, we in India we call it the four stages, brahmachari, grahasti, vanaprastha, sannyas. But I'm taking the good old number, the 84 lakh lives, the number 84, divided by the, you know, divine number 7, you get 12. So we can look at a human being who lives for 84 years, and every 12 years, the human being, male or female, goes through physiological, psychological, and psychosomatic changes, and their duties and responsibilities also change. So accordingly, we have to figure out what are our duties and responsibilities. We know from Baba's postulates, the one where he talks about, uh, I forget the name of that particular message, where the first thing he says is take care of your duties and responsibilities, and only in the last postulate he talks about taking his name at least once every day so that we can remember his name at the time of dropping our body. Time. When does one begin the journey? Right now, because there is nothing like past, present, and future. Past is yesterday's present, and tomorrow and future is tomorrow's present. So there is only the eternal now. And then finally, after having the knowledge as well as the process, now the question is which path should one choose? So when we look at a human being, we can look at the head, heart, and hands. Head is like jnana yoga knowledge, heart is devotion, bhakti yoga, and hands karma yoga, where we talk about selfless service. So since each human being has unique sanskaras, there is going to be a unique process to each one of us in terms of our spiritual journey. It's just like a ball game. If you look at a physical game like basketball, baseball, football, you have to first know the rules of the game. That is an analogy for the universal laws of nature. But knowledge is only 1%, 99% is practice. So we'll come to that later. Now, this is the pyramid, which is the Maslow's self actualization principle, which I believe is a very, I should say, a good way to look at what is a human life all about. The basic needs, we call in Hindi roti, kapda, or makan, food, shelter, and clothing. And then we have the personal life, then our professional life, and then the second last stage, self esteem, is where most people get stuck, especially in today's environment where people can reach material freedom at a very young age. They get stuck at this particular juncture of low self esteem. Why? Even though they have fulfilled their material goals in life, they have not been able to balance that with their inner spirit, the spiritual aspect. And hence, we have seen so many scandals in the financial sector and many other sectors. One example that comes to mind is in New York during the early 2000, where we had the head of McKinsey and the head of a hedge fund, Raj Rajaratnam. These were people who were very well educated, very well off, very had very high net worth, but they still committed certain crimes. And the reason is one of the reasons is low self-esteem because they could not figure out a way to balance their material and spiritual life. So the topmost pyramid, self-actualization, is what the goal of every human being is. You are living to your highest potential. So this is something that every student, every child, every parent should be aware of so that they can guide their children as well as themselves. Now, the theme here is basically we are talking about Mayor Baba and his commandments, what we call as the seven realities. That is the essence. So, individuals who follow Mayor Baba need to be cognizant of the seven realities and how it relates to their day to day life. The other thing is the new humanity, which I talked about earlier, that we are in a different kind of environment. We have gone from an analog to a digital environment. We have gone from the what do you call the analytical reasoning mind to the age of intuition. It's all about the heart. And so, what is challenging out here is how do we balance this head and heart, the mind and heart? Because when I first showed the first slide, everything is perfect. I forgot to mention that everything is perfect except the human mind. Because we know in the universe, the material universe is perfectly fine tuned with all the physical constants, gravitational constant, Planck's constant, pi is equal to 3.1415. The distance between the sun and the moon and the earth, all these three are perfectly well distanced in a way that everything is synchronized in a very harmonizing way. But the only thing that is not perfect is what we see with the way human beings behave with each other. And the reason is the human mind wants to make things permanent. So I'll come to that later now. So, what are the seven realities that Baba talks about? Existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. So, before looking at the seven realities, what is important right now is that before we take any action, we need to have some knowledge, right knowledge, which is only 1%. Then the knowledge put into action, that is 99%. So in yoga, there is a definition which says that right action without right knowledge and right knowledge without right action is meaningless. What does it mean? Knowledge does not become right knowledge unless you put it into action. You have to experience it. If you have not tasted sugar, unless you taste sugar and experience its taste of being sweet, then you can say that yes, the sugar is sweet. So, similarly, what we have here is these seven realities, and I have segregated the first one, real existence, second, the real love, and the number five, real knowledge. These three come under the category of right knowledge. Number three, real sacrifice. Number four, real renunciation. Number six and number seven, control and surrender, all come under the category of right action. This is just my understanding to make it simplified. And when you look at the first reality, real existence is that of the one and only God who is the self in every finite self, which implies that the real I self is the same in all of us, what we call as the Atma, the soul. And the finite self is basically the ego personality self, the false I self, which is attached to the body, which is caught up in creation. So that is the finite self. So the real existence is that. And the second one, the real love, is the love for this infinity or God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth. So here we can see that the process, the oxygen is love, the medium is love. Whether you do karma yoga with your hands, selfless service, whether you do bhakti yoga with your heart, devotion, love, pure love for the perfect master, or jnana yoga, knowledge with your head or mind, the medium required is love. So, love is the medium through which we can attain the goal. And depending on each person's sanskaras, there are many unique paths. So, here God is defined as existence, God is defined as the self, God is defined as the infinity, God is defined as the truth, and so on. Now, coming back to right knowledge and right action, this is where we start with anything that we do in our life, whether it's in our personal life, professional life, material life, or spiritual life. We have to have knowledge, and then from the knowledge, we need to execute or implement. And this is where Baba's discourses and God speaks is a great what do you call, testament to actually getting this knowledge, because we are living in a so called scientific world. But let me redefine the word science out here, because the science of matter is only 500 years old, whereas the science of the spirit has been going on for more than 5,000 years. So when we talk about knowledge, it's about theory, and action is about practice. Theory, knowledge is intellectual, whereas action of thoughts, words, and deeds is basically experiential. And when we talk about knowledge in this context, we are talking about universal laws of nature. And the most important law that everybody consciously or unconsciously understands is that the universal law of nature is impermanence. Change is the only permanent thing. And this is something, if you're a Vipassana practitioner or if you have followed Buddhism, this is something that is emphasized. The universal law of nature is impermanence, but the human mind wants to make things permanent. Hence, people suffer. Here, we are using the word action in the context of this presentation as there are three kinds of action. When people wake up in the morning, there are only three kinds of action they do: thinking, speaking, and doing. And then I'm using Thomas Edison as a reference. He said 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So practice, practice, practice is what makes a person perfect. Now we talked about the seven realities, the seven realities of Baba, which are very important in terms of understanding and how we use those seven realities and compare it with our day-to-day living. Now, what is the new humanity? Today we are living in the 21st century. We have seen the convergence of the East and West. There are no more borders. There are only apparent borders because we have citizens from different countries working with multinational corporations. So we see that the new humanity is already united in a way. The other thing is also the convergence between laws of matter, which is 500 years old, classical mechanics, quantum mechanics, and the laws of the spirit, which is about 5,000 years old. The spirit, laws of spirit is the inner working, and the laws of matter is the outer working. Now, the universal laws of nature, according to Baba's, explanation in the book called Beams, there are four kinds of laws. The basic one is the laws of matter, which includes classical Newtonian mechanics, then quantum mechanics for the subatomic world, classical mechanics for the macro world. Higher than that are the supernatural laws, which has to do with miracles in the subtle world, as we know, and the subtle planes. Higher than that is the law of karma, which is equivalent to the Newton's third law of motion. And the highest is the law of divine grace. So Baba has given us those four laws. In fact, I believe he says that the law of divine grace constitutes the other three laws: the laws of matter, supernatural laws, and the law of karma. Now, what we are trying to do is to transcend from gross, subtle, and mental consciousness to super consciousness, which is called Maha Chaitanya. We are all living in the global village, we understand that. We know about superiority, inferiority, and equality complexes that human beings experience, but underneath that, we are all one, as we know from the seven realities. And what is the challenge here is the adjustment between the spiritual and material. And how do you do it? Manonash, which is the annihilation of the ego personality self, which is the mind. And spiritual and material understanding leads to perception of true and lasting values. So, why is it important to understand the laws of matter and laws of spirit? Is to able to grasp these values, the true and lasting values that are important in our day to day life, how we interact with people, with the environment. And also, the real spiritual experience is about our responsibilities, our attitude towards our worldly duties. Hence, for the new humanity, it's important that they understand the universal laws of nature, which is about matter and spirit. Again, as Baba said in Discourses, the new humanity will not be attached to the what do you call the obsolete or traditional ceremonies, rituals, and so on. What is going to matter is love, and that has to spring spontaneously. And this is a very huge subject, so I won't go too deep into it. But later on, when we discuss love and ego, I'll give some insights on different kinds of love. We also know that pure love is the gift of the perfect master. One of the things we have to be aware of is that even though we call ourselves Baba's lover or Baba lovers, unless infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy are eliminated from our being, then the gift of pure love descends into that spiritual aspirant with the grace of a perfect master. I may also include fear and worry. So we have the seven deadly sins: infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy, fear, and worry. I talked about the head, heart, and hands, which is what the jnana, bhakti, and karma yoga is all about. And since each human being is unique, it's going to be a permutation combination. And if we have the grace of a living perfect master, then surrendering to the perfect master is the best and easiest approach to God realization. For us, Baba lovers, Baba has mentioned that even though he's not in physical form, he's available to us for the next 100 years from 1969 to 2069 in his formless aspect. So that is the beauty of living in this time, that Baba is available to each and every one of us 24 by 7. So it's all about love. So I've just used the white light or sunlight, which goes through a prism, and you have all these different colors. So it's, love has many different flavors. As we know, human love has many flavors: parental love, spousal love, friendly love, and so on. What are we all looking for? Peace, you know. So when the mind and heart are perfectly balanced, then peace is already latent within us. We just have to find this balance. And that is a challenge that every human being is going through. And that's where this presentation is trying to focus on. So, what do we mean by the balancing of mind and heart? So, the subject is a human being. We are called beings, but we are all becoming. To become a doctor, engineer, lawyer, accountant is for practical material reasons. But to become God realized is almost like an oxymoron. Let me make a quote from the beautiful essay called Lover and the Beloved, the first chapter from Everything and the Nothing. And to me, that is the essence of Baba's awakenings or message. I'll just read the last paragraph, which says, to attain union is so impossibly difficult because it is impossible to become what you already are. Union is nothing other than knowledge of oneself as the only one. So you might say, as the only one self. Union is nothing other than knowledge of oneself as the only one self. So this goes back to the first reality, existence. So there's nothing to become God realized. We are actually God realized. All the human beings, 8 billion people in the world, are God realized. but not awakened to their godliness or godliness, our divinity. God in capital letters, godliness is our divinity. And God in small letters is the game of duality, to get over duality. This is the game, the divine game. Baba has called it as a divine sport, a divine game, a divine puzzle, a divine romance. It all depends on each individual sanskaras, how you want to play this game. So the beauty is that the only thing that we need to do is to dissolve our sanskaras, because the sanskaras are creating a veil to understand oneself. So this game that started with no sanskaras, accumulated sanskaras through evolution, as now in the process of unwinding sanskaras, and with the guidance of a perfect master or avatar, we are enabled to dissolve these sanskaras. And the only thing that's needed is intense effort and infinite patience, as Baba says. So we are all spiritual beings in a material body, not material beings in a spiritual body. That's very simple. So there are two bodies, one is the material body and one is the spiritual body. The spiritual body is the realized self. The material body that has come from the most original womb has three parts, as we know: the gross body, the subtle body, and the mental body. So what we are trying to do is to the body needs consciousness to sustain, and consciousness needs the material body to able to self realize or self actualize. That is why the planet earth is where this is the center of the universe or the cosmos, where the soul's consciousness needs to have a human body to self emancipate or to liberate itself. That's how this whole divine script is, the divine theme is. You can't ask why or what. It's like asking why are the physical constants so and so. So, this is just a comparison between the heart and mind, because we are talking about this very practical challenge in day to day life. What is heart and what is mind? So, being and becoming, these are the two things that we are dealing with on a daily basis. Second, when we talk about the heart, being is about breathing. Breathing is never of the past or the future, it's always of the present, and it's non dual. Whereas thinking is of the mind, it's about the past or the future, you know. So it is dualistic. When you talk about the heart, it's about love, of course. And the heart is pure, it's clean, it's spontaneous, it's about feelings. Whereas when you talk about the mind, which is about the ego, it's selfish, it needs separativeness. That's how it's designed because of the evolution. And we know from God Speaks, the fifth plane is about thinking, and the sixth plane is about feeling. So when we talk about the female and the male gender, the female gender is much more superior to the male because of the qualities of the heart. Baba said women excel in the qualities of the heart, whereas men excel in the qualities of mind and will. But both mind and heart have to balance each other, but heart always has precedence over the mind. So, this is a very important concept to note, that we need both heart and mind, but heart always has precedence. When we talk about the heart, it's the realized self. The mind is about the false I ego. Heart is about intuition. Mind is about analytical reasoning mind. Heart is about understanding spirit, whereas mind is about matter. And and so on. So it's very the differences are very clear to us here. And bhakti yoga, pure love, Baba has said, is the easiest and best way to approach God realization, to approach a perfect master. But not all of us are structured like that because of our samskara. Some people have more inclination towards knowledge, and of course, you have to have love. Without love as the medium, one can't succeed both in material life and spiritual life. So, the concept of love is something like what oxygen is needed for keeping the material body going 24 by 7 from the time you're born. Similarly, love is the medium. Whatever yoga you adopt, karma, bhakti, jnana, kriya, raja yoga, and so on. Okay, now this is from the supplement of God Speaks Practical Mysticism. Approach to truth is individual. As we said, we all have a unique fingerprint, we have a unique DNA. Similarly, we have unique sanskaras. So, truth is one, but the approach to it is essentially individual. The Sufis say there are as many ways to God as there are souls of men. So, this is very clear that the rules of the game are common to everybody, but the way you play is going to be unique to each one of us. Meditation through reading. Now, why is this important? Now, Baba spent so much time dictating God Speaks, and then in the 1930s, 1938, he dictated the discourses chapter by chapter for that magazine. And Baba himself has said this. He has given spiritual atom bombs of energy to each and every word in God Speaks and Discourses. So even if one doesn't understand, just by reading it and having that patience, one day the keys to the kingdom will open. And I'm a personal example to that. My reading was very intellectual, and then slowly Baba turned the key, and slowly I saw the transformation happening. So this particular passage is both in discourses as well as in God Speaks in the supplement. You got to read the divine theme daily. You have to study the charts, think about it. Second stage, you have to review it mentally whenever you have the time. And then the final stage would be it's spontaneous, it's inside you. You have imbibed this knowledge and you're actually executing on it. So, this is a beautiful process that the three stages that Baba has described here. So, we are coming to the main theme here. We are talking about discourses, and God Speaks. Discourses has about 70 chapters, and God Speaks, of course, is got two parts. One is the main part, half the book, and the other half is a supplement, detailed explanations. So my challenge was, how do I try to understand the discourses from a top-down view, in a very what do you call an operations research or flowchart point of view. So, based on my reading and the number of meetings that I've had with different groups, I developed this framework where I have taken seven sub themes, as you say, and you see the colors, it's the rainbow color, ROYGBIV. Okay. So, what I've done out here is the first six: spirit and matter, reincarnation and karma, consciousness, sanskaras, love and ego, God and Maya, avatars and perfect masters, comes under the category of right knowledge. Now, God and Maya, avatars and perfect masters could be looked upon as the macro aspect, and the spirit and matter and the reincarnation, consciousness, sanskaras, love and ego can be looked upon as the micro aspect. So all of these six sub-themes can be looked upon as part of the knowledge aspect. And the seventh sub-theme is yoga and meditation. I've already defined you one definition of yoga, which is right action without right knowledge, and right knowledge without right action is meaningless. And here, the definition of meditation for this particular presentation is: meditation means self awareness every waking moment. Self awareness every waking moment. That is meditation. The moment you get up in the morning, whatever task you're doing, brushing your teeth, making your breakfast, writing an email. You do it with 100% concentration and focus. That is meditation. That is a form of self awareness. All kinds of meditation techniques, pranayama, kriya yoga, these are just tools to reach that state in our daily life. So, what I've done out here is the 70 chapters are kind of, in my understanding, they are kind of, I wouldn't call it random, but they are put in a certain way. And for my understanding, in the context of the seven sub themes, so first thing, spirit and matter, there are 8 chapters from the discourses, as you see on the left side. And on the right side, there is one chapter from God Speaks, page number 234. So, spirit and matter, in the next slide, I'll quickly give you a quick overview of what these chapters consist of. We have talked about the spiritual body and material body. And basically, the material body is the gross, subtle, and causal. And gross body deals with the 5 physical senses: touch, taste, sound, smell, sight, and one mental sensation of thought, which is from the mental body. Subtle body is about energy. Now, we talked about laws of matter and laws of spirit. So, both are scientific in nature. Unfortunately, we have been conditioned to think that the laws of matter, Newton's laws, quantum mechanics, are scientific. But here, we are saying that even the laws of spirit are very scientific in nature. For example, Baba talks about 84 lakh human lives, 7,000 in the spiritual hierarchy, 50 crores or 500 million, different species, like all the different kingdoms that that the soul, drop soul consciousness needs to experience, those different mediums. Then we have the 56 God realized souls, which consists of the Majzoobs, Paramahamsas, Jivan Muktas, Sadgurus. And then you have 5 Sadgurus out of the 56. So there is a certain number, it's like they call it information theory. Each individual is like an IT, information theory. So here what I've done is basically we talked about the laws of matter according to the law of divine grace, classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. The laws of thermodynamics are very interesting. First law, conservation of matter and energy. So what you sow is what you reap. The law of karma. Good karma plus bad karma should become zero. That is the whole process that we are going through, this evolution, reincarnation, and evolution process. Sanskaras, good and bad sanskaras have to become zero. Entropy, defined as every orderly system tends towards disorder. That means if the mind is not controlled, I would like to use the word controlled. If you are not aware, self-aware, then we tend to do unintelligent action, which means spending sanskaras and creating fresh new sanskaras. But if we are become self-aware, then we do intelligent action and we don't react to our sanskaras, we are respond to our sanskaras in an intelligent way, which is called unwinding sanskaras. Now, of course, Newton's third law of motion, law of cause and effect, that is the law of karma again. Darwin's theory of evolution of forms should be restated as evolution of consciousness, which adopts different forms. That's where God speaks, makes a big impact. That's how I got attracted to Meher Baba. When Baba came to me in New York City through Pete Townshend of the Who, I forgot to discuss about my own aspect, and also I didn't speak about Meher Baba and his background, which I'll do later. And the DNA fingerprint, which we know for the material body, is equivalent to the sanskaric imprints or impressions that we have to undergo, in our spiritual journey. So this is where I kind of correlated the laws of matter, laws of spirit. The second sub-theme, reincarnation and karma, we all know about birth and death, hell and heaven. These are very well explained. And I've also included 2 chapters called The Problem of Sex and the Sanctification of Married Life, because it talks about the male female gender, the duality aspects. So, a very important thing that one needs to know, what do you mean by reincarnation? And how does karma play a role in terms of how we reincarnate as a male or a female born in the East or in the West with an inferiority, superiority, or equality complex? And there are 9 chapters in Discourses and 2 chapters from God Speaks. Consciousness and sanskaras, very important, sub theme here. Sanskaras are impressions or imprints created by the action of thoughts, action of words, action of deeds. Thoughts create weak impressions, words create strong impressions, and deeds create powerful impressions. And Baba has said that we can't control our thoughts just like mosquitoes. But as long as you don't convert your thoughts into words or deeds, we are safe. So that's the essence of understanding sanskaras. Consciousness, as we know, there are different degrees depending on which kingdom you belong to. And in the human kingdom, we have reached full and complete consciousness, but not awakened because of sanskaras, which we have gained from evolution, the lust, greed, anger in the animal kingdom. And if you look at the blue part, there are 12 chapters from God Speaks. Almost the whole of God Speaks is in this chapter, consciousness and sanskaras. There are 7 chapters from discourses. So here we are talking about, what I have already discussed. It's already 9:47, so I have about 15 minutes. Um, you know, the 4 kinds of people, which I learned from Vipassana. It's a
Kama,
life is.
you can go over a little because we have an hour for Q&A, so you're okay if you take your time.
All right. So, an interesting concept that I learned when I did Vipassana practice is that there are 4 kinds of people. People who are born in brightness move towards more brightness. People who are born in brightness move towards darkness. And then people who are born in darkness move towards brightness. And people who are born in darkness move towards more darkness. And then when you look at life, there are 8, took the magic number 84. There was a rock and roll song called Birth, School, Work, Death. This is by a group called the Godfathers. It's an English band. I saw it in VH1 Classic somewhere in the mid 90s, I believe. And birth and death we don't control. School is about 8 years, starting from bachelor's to PhD, and then we work for 40 years. So typically every 21 years we are changing our, vocation or what we are doing with our life. If you're a medical student, you're going to study till 28 and then you practice 56 and then you probably retire. And then here I've taken the 12 years. There are 7 stages according to Shakespeare, or you can take 7 years and there are 12 stages. So that depends on each individual how you want to kind of structure yourself. And one thing, if you look at it, 84 years is equivalent to 30,000 days. Every day there are 24 hours, 8 hours we go to sleep, that is 1/3, which means 10,000 days we go to sleep. So 28 years, if you live till 84, you're asleep. You have only 56 years left. And so the maths tells you like we don't have much time. And this is the time to get liberated, because we are in the avataric age, and Baba is the formless aspect is guiding all of us, and it is the intention that is important here. That's why I put this thing life in a quadrant: intention, process, action, the 80-20 rule. What do I mean by that? 80% people are incompetent in any organization, not because they don't have talent, because they are all in the wrong jobs. That is the nature of the beast. That 80% people will be incompetent, whether it's in a material organization or a spiritual organization. Now, out of the 20%, 1% will have right intention, right thought, and then they will have the right process or formulation, and maybe right action of deeds, execution or implementation. Maybe. The other 19% divide by 2, 9.5%, right intention, wrong process, The other 9.5%, wrong intention, right process. This is how the world is kind of structured in a very approximate sense. The fourth aspect, love and ego, very important. Love and ego are inversely proportional. There are some beautiful chapters in discourses, and you can notice that there is no chapter in God Speaks. There's nothing about love. This is something very interesting. Many people will have different perspective about it, but the God Speaks is such a clinically well written book, and it's all about consciousness and sanskaras if you really look at it. But Discourses gives you the essence of love and ego. Beautiful chapters, actually. A little synopsis on love and ego. They are inversely proportional. We know it's the loving heart and egoistic mind, not the egoistic heart and loving mind. Human love is of the material body, and there are different kinds of love we talked about. Brotherly love, friendly love, it's like a kaleidoscope. So, love can be defined as three ways: human love, pure love, and divine love. So, pure love is a gift of the perfect master when you're in the subtle plane. And then divine love is in the seventh plane when you attain union, which is Satchitananda, infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite bliss. Now, when we talk about the ego, which is about the mind, so ego has many aspects to it. For example, Baba talks about lust of the gross body, greed of the subtle body, and anger of the mental body. When we look at Buddha, he talked about, craving, aversion, and ignorance are the three causes of suffering. So if you look at all the English alphabets, anger, aversion, backbiting, craving, duality, expectations, fear, greed, and so on, you just open the English dictionary, we see all kinds of antonyms. So we carry all of these different aspects, in different degrees based on our sanskaras. So all these things, lust, greed, anger, or the seven deadly sins, infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy, fear, worry, can all be brought into the heading of ego. Now, this is the real I and the false I. So you can talk about the real I is the real ego, which is the original self, which is the same in all of us, which has no duality, which has no samskaras. The false I is the ego personality self, which is the becoming part. So basically, all of us have two personalities. One is the real I, which is the same self in all of us, which is not selfish, which is all about selfness. Whereas the other ego is about selfishness or selflessness. So the chapter on selfishness and discourse, gives you much more detail on this. So we understand it's the thinking mind, ego, personality, self. Mind is only there for material reasons, how to take care of your material body. And this, when you look at the people who are at the top of their profession, the athlete, sportsman is attached to his gross body, the musician, artist attached to his subtle body, the scientist, philosopher, Nobel Prize winner is attached to his mental body. But when they all go to sleep, they are all one self. So, this attachment to the body and getting caught up in creation is the source of misery or suffering. Number five, God and Maya. What is God? I talked about godliness, our divinity, Godhood is our divinity, or God is just a name, as Krishnamurthy said, or as we know, a rose by any other name will smell the same. So it's a game of duality to get over duality. What is Maya? Maya is not illusion. Maya is the creator of illusion. Maya is the shadow of reality because God is a reality. I don't know what is God, but definitely when we go into sound sleep state, we are unconsciously connected with in union with the Paramatma or God, because the drop soul consciousness connects with the oversoul consciousness, the super consciousness. That's why we experience bliss, but we are unconscious of it during our sleep, and it's equivalent to the nirvana state when you're conscious. And that is what we are all trying to do, is to bring that bliss state which we experience unconsciously in our sound sleep state into our waking state. So it is called fana, annihilation of the mind, manonash, or nirvana, where sanskaras become zero. And that happens with the grace of the Guru. So these chapters, 9 chapters from Discourses and 12 chapters from God Speaks, gives you the essence of what is God and what is Maya. These are like very detailed, very, especially the 4 parts in Maya are very, very interesting and very quite complicated, I would say, but very good reading, I would say. So we talk about God realization, which is equivalent to self realization. What does it mean? Like when you talk about God, there are 2 aspects to God. One is the personal form of God, and one is the impersonal form of God. So when we wake up, we identify with the form, us and them. So that is why we have the personal form of God in terms of the avatars, Sadgurus, Madzubs, and so on. All the self realized beings are manifestation of God. Avatar, of course, is a different category because he is God in human form. He is the first human drop soul who became God realized after going through evolution and reincarnation. And he became the chairman emeritus. And he is the only soul who comes again and again every 700 to 1400 years as an avatar in different geographical areas, in different time cycles. Whereas the impersonal form of God, which we call as the infinite consciousness or the eternal avataric infinite consciousness, Nirguna Nirakar, state to be, as per the most original will. That is the formless aspect of God, which is what Islam focuses on. Unfortunately, you can't go to the formless unless you go through the personal form of God. This is very clearly described by Baba because we as a human form in the material body identify with a human form, and even God in a human form is what makes it attractive. Very few people can go into the formless aspect and directly into the being devoted to the formless self. So what is self-realization? I call it our innermost loving self. When we talk about the Parvartigar prayer, you are in the firmament, you are in the depths. What is Baba saying? Your innermost loving self. Because Baba was also a drop soul. We are also drop souls, except that Baba was the first drop soul to become God realized. So ultimately, we are just subsets from the ocean, the drops, the raindrops which evaporate from the ocean. So self-realization is basically our innermost loving self. That's what is all about God. And in the sound sleep state, we actually are united with our own self. That is the beauty. The sixth sub-theme, avatars and perfect masters, very obvious. Perfect masters are the second, third, fourth drop souls or whoever it is. Of course, there's a difference between avatar and perfect masters. Perfect masters don't reincarnate, only avatars incarnate. But they don't have to go through evolution, reincarnation, or involution because they go through what we call as Vijnani sanskaras and then Yoga sanskaras. So we as drop souls have no way of becoming an avatar, but you have an opportunity to become a perfect master or a Jivan Mukta or a Paramahamsa or a Madhu, or just get Satchitananda state and vanish off into the formless. So there are about 11 chapters in Discourses and 16 chapters in God Speaks about avatars and perfect masters. The seventh, the first 6 dealt with right knowledge. The seventh one is about right action. So we see here 18 chapters from Discourses. These are beautiful chapters, only about 4 from the God Speaks, especially from the supplement actually. Most of them are from the supplement. So in the next slide, I'll quickly tell you about yoga and meditation. We all know that health is wealth and wealth is health. We need all three: physical health, mental health, and material wealth. You can have all three, but do you have the time? You can have all three and time. Do you know what you want to do with yourself? So, this is the quandary, the challenge for the new humanity. You can become very materially rich, but we are spiritually poor because we don't have the grace of a perfect master. Because the ego says, hey, you're a scientific man, you're intellectual, you can do it yourself. So, coming back to head, heart, and hands, this is my personal experience by doing Hatha Yoga, which is now popular in the West. You take care of the gross body. By doing Kriya Yoga, which has to do with the seven chakras, pranayama takes care of the subtle body. And then by doing Vipassana, it helps in self awareness. Actually, Vipassana was a turning point for me in terms of understanding sanskaras. The next one is a acronym Baba is Ma. Baba, is father. Ma means mother. But breath awareness for the subtle body, with body awareness for the gross body, and mind awareness for the mental body. So that is just a formula I made up. And breath is the common medium for all three. Now, meditation, I have mentioned earlier, is self awareness every waking moment. By doing all these three, is trying to bring equanimity to your gross, subtle, and mental body. So these are just techniques, different people, different strokes for different folks. So I am not saying that this is the only way. One has to explore, experiment, experience, exist, explode. You know. So what is the real yoga of daily living? Today we all sit in the office for 8 to 10 hours. The most important thing in yoga is keep your spine erect and breathe right. So, breath awareness is self awareness, is mind awareness. Because Baba, I look at it as breath awareness is Baba awareness. Baba said, inhale Ba, exhale Ba. Try to repeat my name with concentration, with love, with focus, not like rote learning. Don't do it mechanically. Better to do it for 2 minutes every hour rather than doing it for many hours mechanically, just like the Hare Krishna guys, But the real yoga of daily living. So, the easiest way to be aware of Baba, because Baba is our own loving self, is through the breath. The mind is only for material reasons. So, with that, I conclude my presentation and feel free to ask me any question. A quick synopsis of Meher Baba. Meher Baba was born in 1894 in a Zoroastrian family, and he met the five perfect masters when he was in college. He dropped out of college, I believe. And when he was in 1925, he started maintaining silence. And the reason was very simple. Everything that needs to be said has already been said. I'm here to awaken. And on the Samadhi, it's written, I've not come to teach, I've come here to awaken. Things that are real are given and received in silence. Don't worry, be happy. Real happiness lies in making others happy. So, Baba's formula is very simple: love and selfless service. No need for rituals, no need for chanting. So, it's all about self awareness. And self awareness is about love. And so, Baba maintained silence for 1925 but worked like a CEO, like a chairman emeritus. He went around the world many times, established centers in Australia, United States, and of course India. And today, my understanding is out of the 7 to 8 billion people, probably there are 700 to 800,000 Baba lovers, 0.01% of the population. And Baba is not of is in the public realm like Shirdi Sai Baba. It takes about 70 years, according to the past history or tradition, for the public to become aware of a perfect master or the avatar. So people, including me, are very fortunate and privileged to have the grace and blessing of Baba, because I was a spiritual shopper myself and I stopped. And then Baba came to me when I was ready. But it took me from 1997 to 2009 to get that final confirmation. So I use me myself as an example that the saying, the teacher comes when the student is ready. So, as a spiritual shopper, I was looking around, searching, and there is no need to search. Don't look for the perfect master, be a perfect student. Don't look at the teacher, look at the teachings. So, Baba comes to people when they are ready. He said, take my name to the ear, I will take it from the ear to the heart. So, when I'm in India, I talk about Shirdi Sai Baba, and now Shirdi Sai Baba mentioned the word Parvardigar to Meher Baba, and that is how I communicate to people. And when I meet people in the West, I lived in New York City for 20 years. So Baba to me is about Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry Be Happy song, the number one hit song called the One Wonder Hit, 1988. And then of course Pete Townshend of The Who, Tommy the album, and all his solo albums are dedicated to Baba. That's how I got to know about Baba. So that is a synopsis of Meher Baba. His theme is love and selfless service. So with that, I will open up for Q&A. Jai Meher Baba. Thank you.
Thank you, Kama. That was very, very nice. Thank you very much. I was going to open the forum for everyone to ask any questions they have. They can raise their hand and unmute themselves and ask questions. I wanted to. Do you want to keep the slides there? Because I want you to go through the agenda, and I want to make sure that we covered all the aspects that we. Yeah, just making sure that. Second slide, yeah. Make sure we got that all of the good items. Oh, not me. It was excellent. I'm gonna look and see if anyone has raised their hands, or if you just want to unmute and ask questions, you could. But I think we're good, Kama. If you want to stop on sharing, we could just look at each other and talk at this point. I think we're... Okay. You know what? Just on, so you can just unshare from on top. Just press the red button saying unshare, or stop sharing.
Okay, so I'll just
okay.
keep myself busy.
Perfect. So we have Rosalie. Rosalie, you have a question?
Jai Baba, your name is Kama?
Yes, Kama is,
Yeah.
yes, you can call me KMA, yes.
I'm very interested in the fact that Baba's taking us from intellectual to intuition. And I was wondering what your familiarity is with Baba during the Blue Bus tours, speaking in a mystical language through Narena Machabelli. Are you familiar with that time and that work?
Yes, I'm familiar with that time, but I wouldn't be able to comment on that aspect. I know about the Blue Bus tour. I've read a lot there, but I will need to contemplate, introspect, and reflect on that to answer your question.
Well, why I bring it up is Baba was speaking in a mystical language, really an intuitive speaking, and he speaks of it as through mouth of soul. So I just feel it's a very important thing in your. I like the fact of what you're presenting, but I feel this is an important thing that needs to be considered, Kama. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Considered, because it's been, even in publication since, the late 1930s, and Baba
Yes.
said it was for the future, but this is the future. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and Also, one other thing is we have so much knowledge for Baba, but a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. I feel that a lot of knowledge is kind of dangerous too, in its way. And I love how in God Speaks, Baba has that little paragraph about God has to be experienced. This is for the intellectual convulsions of the mind. So that also is an important thing to take note, because I hear a lot of things bantied about with all of this knowledge that comes. And my response to it at present time is it can be a dangerous thing, misused. Anyway, that's my thoughts. And I thank you for, it felt very balanced, what you're putting forth, but I think it would even be more of a balance to acknowledge the mystical speaking. Jai
Yes,
Baba.
thank you.
Hey, Baba. Thank you, Rosalie. Rosalie, we
Baba.
couldn't see your face. We just see part of your hair. I was going to interrupt you, but
To point the camera,
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I like,
and I'm the top of my head's off.
thank you. What I liked about Kama's presentation is how he has taken all the teachings of Meher Baba and put it into 7 or 14 elements, and he has made that connection with each of the chapters of the discourses and God Speaks. Many of us have read God Speaks several times. Many of us read Discourses several times. And a lot of us are still foggy about what it said. And Kama pretty much put a framework around it for all of us to kind of understand where all of this is. Unfortunately, because we have such limited mind, we kind of sit through and read a lot of the close followers of Meher Baba to see if we could make sense of all these teachings, where all the teachings of Meher Baba is already in these 2 books. And I was just curious, Kama, how do you think this will play out? Because I feel like when we follow, we talk about Meher Baba and all of his followers and how their interpretation of what Meher Baba said is not doing justice to Baba, where we have all his teachings in 2 books and we could truly see what is our interpretation, just like what you did. So I wanted you to talk about that a little and help us through this.
If I understood your question, that the essence of Baba's teachings are in both these books. Of course, Beams, Life at its Best, Everything and the Nothing also add a lot of value to both these books. And the important thing we have to remember is the 7 realities, the equivalent to the 10 commandments, the 7 realities, because that is what is the essence of Baba's teaching, because we have to anyway deal with our day-to-day life, the practical material life. And how do we imbibe these? It's like an operating system. You can follow the Buddhist operating system or the Islamic operating system. I think each one of us is made up for a particular operating system in this particular life cycle. And intuitively, we know which particular operating system suits us, suits our personality. So I think that, the 25 participants here probably are interested in understanding how Baba's messages, they kind of rhyme with or harmonize with our day-to-day living. So I believe that for me, yes, when Rosalind was talking about the intellectual side, I wanted to say that knowledge is just a scaffolding, and knowledge, we have to go beyond knowledge. For people who have the gift of pure love from the perfect master, they don't need knowledge. They just are spontaneously connected with the teacher or the guru. Whereas ordinary people like us, especially, spiritual aspirants who are trained in a scientific manner, they need to go through this intellectual process till the grace and blessing of the teacher comes to them. Because ultimately, knowledge has to be thrown away, just like the fireplace where you take a stick and churn the fireplace and you throw the stick in. So I think that, there is no one way, and the dynamics keep changing. Baba has said that each reincarnation, each lifetime, we are working on particular sanskaras as such. So that's my understanding. Jai Baba.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, are there any more questions? I'm curious, how many of you are new to Mayor Papa and this was pretty new? This is the first time you've heard of him. Oh, good. So we don't have too many newbies. So are there any more questions? No. Kama, do you want to add anything? Because we have time, but we can definitely stop earlier and carry on. Any comments, suggestions?
One of the things I want to mention here is that how did I reach this process, And what has happened is for the last 1 year, since March of last year, we had this group discussion where we read Baba's books, Discourses, God Speaks, Everything in the Nothing, and this actually was the catalyst for me to, segment the discourses when God speaks the way I presented it. So, in fact, in the message box, I'm going to send the link for people to, if they are interested, they can participate in these sessions, which happens every weekend. And there is Mr. Karthik Balasubramaniam. I would request him to speak about it because he can articulate it better than I do. Karthik, can you go ahead and speak about it?
Jai Baba, everybody. Great talk, Kama. Thank you. As always, you are able to connect the dots across books, connect the dots across concepts, and then make it very mathematical, if I may say. Thank you very much. But again, each one in the journey has his own way, and Baba, to be honest, doesn't make it very easy. He has, again, to quote Kama, it's a game, right? So it's a jigsaw puzzle, and though discourses, God Speaks, and Beams act as the backbone of Baba's written word, uh, not everything is straightforward and something that you can imbibe and learn very easily. The language and the semantics don't help as well. So as Kama put it, we literally chanced upon an attempt, thanks to pandemic and a meeting in Calcutta in a Meher Sahwas, and that has led to something that is truly magical. We've been working for the last 1 year, every weekend, 4 hours every weekend, and we've been reading the books over and over again, largely Discourses, God Speaks, and Beams, and finally hit upon a formula where we think which would work very well for structured intensive learning. So what we've actually done is we use a software tool to link up all the books, and also we do this in traditional curriculum and learning methods. So we first read the text, then raise the questions, and if there are any interlinks between the book that we are reading and any other text of Baba, we add those references to that. So, and in all this, we use digital in a big way, thanks to how the last 1 year has been for all of us. So it's been an interesting experience, but I think whatever I say, I'll not be able to do justice to this. So what Kamal will add on the chat, we'll also have a video for the first hour of reading on discourses that we embarked on about a month back. So if you go and see that, you'll get an idea of what we do. So we don't do a very fast paced learning. So we do typically a chapter a week, but and it's a cozy small group, and we are focused on learning and absorption rather than coverage of content. And we've built some very nice relationships all over the world: Singapore, Denmark, USA, of course, and I think all of them, some of them are even on this call as we speak. So it's been a fascinating experience, led by Baba, and of course anchored and guided and helped along the way by Kama.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kartik, for sharing that. If you all look at, you can save the chat today by clicking on the 3 dots, and you can save that on your computers or your phones. So you can do that. Are there any more questions, comments? Some wonderful comments came through. Marcia, thank you. You have provided structure for people new to Baba and review for those of us who have been with Baba. And Sefide says, I just want to say thank you. Dinku says thank you. And we got 2 more messages. Shalaja and Jasima say wonderful talk, Kama, Jameer Baba. So everything is wonderful, Kama. I really appreciate that. And we hope that by word of mouth, we can have 1 more or 2 more of these so you all can benefit. What I want to do, hopefully, is share the slides, because what really stuck or I love is whenever I want to read my discourses or God Speaks, all I have to do is go look at your chapters and say, oh, this is about that. And I really appreciate that. That's great work. Thank you so much for doing that, Kama.
So actually, you should check out the Trello board. I'll also share that link, and you should listen to the video, because what we have done is made that interactive. So you could actually go to a board, look at each of the themes on a pane, and actually click on a chapter. You listen to Don Stevens on the audio file right there for the chapter, and you can also click again and open up the PDF. So it's a very interesting way of learning. Yeah.
Is that the YouTube one that you just shared?
Yes, that has the link. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well,
thank you. Jai Baba.
There are no, sorry.
Yeah, I just said thank you, Jai Baba. That's it.
Thank you for all coming. Thank you for listening. Kama, million thanks for organizing the slides and accepting to come. We know how busy you are. And Jai Baba, everyone, thanks again for everything.
Jai Baba, thank you very much to Angela and Roxy.
Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.
Jai Baba, everyone.